In the previous part, we were shown two people who came from the divine world, so it could be concluded that the creatures in the divine world were stronger when compared to creatures from the immortal world. Then people were also shown who wears a red shirt, who orders one of his subordinates to go down to the immortal world with a mission to check what is going on in the immortal world, or is there something strange in this immortal world, because besides the pieces belonging to the red shirt who has been killed by someone, or what we know was killed by Sui, immortal emperor. According to the words of the white clothes, also his subordinates once felt that there was a powerful figure inhabiting the. So they decided to send someone from the divine world to go down to check into the immortal world, until the envoy met immortal Emperor Sui. After meeting creatures from the divine world with the immortal emperor, then a battle broke out between the two of them, but it didn't last long because this divine woman, because of her strength, managed to easily make Sui lose with just one move. Indeed, we can predict that cultivators from the divine world must be stronger than a cultivator of the immortal world. At the same time, Boss Duan, who was relaxing at home, seemed to know about the incident. Then she ordered the kitchen knife to go to the immortal world and help Sui fight against the envoy woman. After that, in the seconds before Sui was killed by a woman, a kitchen knife came which was then easily able to break the move that the woman had used to almost kill Sui, so Sui was saved from death. Then there was something quite interesting where the kitchen knife, after that made the woman divine, he became very surprised, because apparently the power of this knife was being sealed using more than 3,000 seals, so if for example all of these 3,000 seals were removed, then the knife should be at least 3,000 times stronger than us. And what is even more interesting is, the kitchen knife then opens one of the seals, and by opening just one seal out of the 3,000 seals, the power of this knife can make the envoy woman afraid, even though this woman is strong enough to be able to make Sui lose, but she is scared after the knife opens one of the seals, especially if it has opened all of them. The knife does not open all the seals, because he feels that just opening one is enough to finish off the woman, so that this makes women wonder, who is the man in front of her? How could there be a being with that much power living in the immortal world? But this question was not answered by the knife, because he felt unimportant and without further ado immediately killed the woman without anything left at all. After that, the knife said that he missed the times when he could destroy the immortal world in one blink, so the knife this had once destroyed the immortal world, so Sui had already known from the start that the man was Senior Chin Kitchen Knife. He became curious if Senior Chin Knife was that strong, then how strong was Senior Chin in fact? The knife then returned home and reported to Boss Duan that he had completed his mission well, but instead, Boss Duan thought that this knife was not clean enough in dealing with the woman earlier. He should have been faster and more precise, said Boss Duan, even though the immortal emperor was almost killed against this woman. Then Sui came to Chen's house to thank him, because he thought the knife was sent for help from Senior Chen, who knew that he was in trouble, but because Chen was not at home, Boss Duan then opened the door, and after seeing Boss Duan figure, Immortal the Emperor apparently immediately knelt in front of her and greeted Boss Duan by calling the She Master, so according to Sui words, 10,000 years ago, it was Boss Duan who helped Sui to become Immortal Emperor by giving him the heavenly law. Hasn't been explained yet, that's definitely why Sui regards Boss Duan as his master, but even though Boss Duan helps Sui, she apparently never wants to be called master by Sui, and doesn't explain why. After a little chat, Boss Duan said that Chen was not at home at that time, so she offered Sui to stop by first while visiting Suling, but Suling herself was still not very welcome, still not friendly with her father. Sui then said maybe Suling was not like him because he has something to do with her mother, but before Sui could tell her, Boss Duan had told him to stop now that Boss Duan already knows very well what happened between them all, what happened in the Immortal Emperor family. Suling still remember her mother, and who is this mother? Maybe it will be answered as the story progresses later. Regardless of the matter with Suling, the Sui started to guess why this Boss Duan was in Senior Chen house, and he guessed that maybe this Boss Duan was Senior Chen lover, because it was only natural for a strong senior to be paired with a strong person as well. Since it came to this point, it could be concluded that this one was indeed a very powerful being to the point of commanding artifacts in Champingan's house, and Sui also called her master. Then back to the divine world, the two red and white people shown in the previous part, they were very surprised because their subordinates had died twice in the immortal world, and in theory it was very strange, because there was no way a creature in the immortal world could kill a divine world creature. Moreover, the killing of their envoy earlier in an instant or very fast and also immediately destroyed, then what is this law of cause and effect that the two of them discussed? Actually, it hasn't been explained yet, but maybe it's like energy remnants that can be traced, so when there's a cultivator death should be known or can be traced he killed why or killed with what force. Besides being killed very instantaneously or very quickly, the law of causation also immediately disappeared or was immediately blocked, he said, so they were very confused because they knew that it was very impossible for immortal world beings to be able to manipulate the law of causation. Even these two people couldn't. They said that there should only be one being in this universe who could manipulate those laws, namely the eternal God Emperor, but if it really turned out to be the God Emperor who killed their envoy, they still couldn't figure out what reason this God Emperor would do such a thing or what the God Emperor had to do with immortal world. So they were very confused at that time and decided to ask the matter directly to the eternal God Emperor. Short the story is that they arrived at the residence of the God Emperor. Here we are shown the new cultivation level of the God Emperor, namely the God Realm. We assume that for now the God Realm is the highest cultivation level that we know so far. Then it was also explained that this God Emperor ruled over 3 domains, namely the God, then Demon, and Buddha. A little guesswork about these 3 domains. Devil sect. Therefore, if you forgot the red shirt kid or the sect leader of the demon sect who was killed by Sui before, she was shown cultivating using human blood, so that we can deduce a little bit which school is a quite vicious cultivation school. Then the second one is the Buddhist school. Mentioned this once when Murong returned the dog to Senior Chen. At that time, Murong told Senior Chen that the dog followed the Buddha school, so the dog would not be fierce to Senior Chen, and for that reason Chen also allowed the dog to live with him. As for God School or God School still doesn't have any explanation at all. That's probably why that describes the 3 domains. But this explanation is just a personal guess, so maybe it can change as the story goes on. Back to the 2 people earlier that they protested to the God Emperor because the God Emperor was the being who governed the 3 domains earlier, or the schools of God, Demon, and Buddha earlier. From the 3 domains the good Emperor should have been neutral towards the 3, but they protested because thought it was God Emperor who had killed the red shirts underlings and was considered to be interfering in their affairs. They could protest like that because only God Emperor beings could manipulate the laws of cause and effect that had been explained earlier, so they thought that this God Emperor had begun to be unfair to the 3 domains earlier, but after that the God Emperor said he had never done such a thing. He had just come out of his private practice isolated from the outside world, so he himself was also bewildered by the reports of these 2 people as if they didn't make any sense, but it seemed they were honest. Then it occurred to the God Emperor that there should be 2 more people who could manipulate the law of causation, and he said he hadn't heard of those 2 in a very long time. Who were these 2 people that the God Emperor was referring to? Unfortunately again, this is still a mystery that has not been explained. Then moved on to Chen, who was practicing with his tournament group. Here he brought 2 bears brothers who had been tamed by a dog yesterday to be their training companions. Interestingly, Chen made the excuse that he was using a secret artifact that served to temporarily tame these 2 bears so that his team members wouldn't be afraid if the bears went berserk at any time. But even though that reason was just a fake excuse from Chen, apparently they quickly adapted and weren't afraid anymore, and it can be seen that Shan is also enthusiastic about fighting with one of the bears. Then Pan Hang also has Chen's strength and is starting to get along, because he feels that having Chen on his team can make them win the match in the tournament later. Chen also didn't mind all that happened with Pan Hang yesterday, because Chen himself also needed them to take part in the tournament and spread Long Out Yin's name throughout the kingdom according to the mission he got from the system. Then when the tournament started and there were quite a number of cultivators from various places, one of them was Zabuza from the Naruto anime. Because dogs were not allowed to participate in the tournament, Chen tied the dog to a tree near the arena and only brought a sword and then met his tournament team. After that, Chan had a little brush with a woman named Guo Shiyun, who she carries a sword that is quite large and looks interested in the sword that Chen is carrying. She says she has seen the sword somewhere, but she does not remember. This Shiyun thought of taking Chen's sword to replace Firebird, which has been removed. What creature is this Firebird will be shown at the end of this part. Shiyun wants to take Chen's sword, so she takes part in the Warrior Kingdom tournament by manipulating the memories of the Moi team, so they think Shiyun is her teammate. So the sword that had seen Shiyun manipulate the Moi team, apparently the sword was familiar with she. He said Shiyun was a scientist from a sect of the immortal world called Yunji sect. So this Shiyun was an immortal, not just anyone. That's why the sword was familiar with her. Shiyun too previously said he had seen a sword, though he didn't really remember Back to the Warrior Kingdom tournament. So the tournament has 2 rounds. The first round is a one-on-one battle, so each team sends one of its members to fight against another team. Then the second round is a team battle. So the strategy that is usually used is to send the weakest person from one goal of the team to compete in round 1, so that during the second round, during the team fight, the strongest person must have a lot of ki and not be tired. Chen, who feels he is the most cultivator, the weakest of them all, then offered himself to compete in round 1, not only because he felt the weakest, but Chen thought round 1 was an opportunity for him to copy moves from opponents he would face later. Maybe you forgot at this point, in part previously Chen had been provoked by Moi, and when they fought, apparently Chen could copy Moi's racing thunder and use it. So here, he thought of looking for as many opponents as possible in round 1 so he could copy their moves as well. Chen's decision actually made the other members confused, because they knew Chen wasn't this is the most powerful cultivator in the team. Isn't it according to the strategy that it's better to just send the weakest person, so that later Chen won't tire out in round 2, because they think Chen is the strongest person in the team, but because they are also very respecting Chen, they thought maybe Senior Chen had other plans. Finally, they agreed with Chen's decision to compete in the first round. Before fight, Shuai then approached Chen to say something. What was this? So before the king had heard about Chen whereabouts from the prince, and after they found out that Chen would be participating in the royal tournament, the king also told Shuai to tell Senior Chen, so that Chen should not be too serious when fighting the prince, for fear of the prince being seriously injured. Shuai then conveyed the message that later, when you meet the prince, please be careful, but Chen precisely innocently thought that Shuai was concerned about him, and he thought this prince was very strong, so Shuai warned him to be careful. Chen then said to Shuai, "Don't worry, I'll be total when I fight the prince," he said, so that made Shuai pale, immediately imagining what would happen to the prince later when Senior Chen totaled. Then the first round match began. Apparently Chen immediately fought the prince. After seeing the figure of Champingen, who was his opponent, this prince instinctively became frightened, because he himself had seen Chen repelled high-level monsters with his own eyes, so he wondered why a strong cultivator like Senior Chen was participating in the tournament. But on the other hand, Chen seemed to be very excited about fighting the prince, because he thought for sure this prince was very strong and had cool moves that he could copy later. But unexpectedly, before the match had started, the prince immediately surrendered to Chen, so that the people watching became very surprised. What kind of person can make the royal prince surrender just like that, without any resistance at all? After they looked closely, the prince's opponent seemed to be Chen. Immediately everyone there was shocked, because apparently almost everyone watching their had was saved by Chen from a monster attack while training in the forest. This happened before Chen led a horde of 10,000 monsters, so that all of Chen's opponents in round 1 at that time, no one dared to fight Chen, and all of them gave up without even fighting at all, and some even worshipped Champingen for being rescued earlier. Until finally Moi intervened, because from the start, he was annoyed with Chen and felt stronger than Chen, especially now that he could use his sword artifact, which he said was found in a secret room. So if Moi's sword is found in the secret room, which is very rare in the mortal world, naturally he thinks the sword is a sword strong, but long story short, Chen still easily managed to destroy the sword he was proud of earlier and made Moi give up after realizing how strong Chen really was. But Moi bad luck didn't end there. The prince who saw their match seemed to realize that Moi had a problem with Senior Chen, so the prince does not accept and plans to tell his father or the king to teach his father, Moi, who is also a minister in the kingdom. This sad for Moi. Back to the tournament, the next match was Champingen against Guo Shiyun, a scientist who was from the immortal world who previously targeted Champin's sword. Because she is an immortal, she feels that it is impossible for her to lose to Chen, so here Shiyun offers a deal to Chen. If Chen loses, then Chen's sword will be taken by Shiyun, but if Shiyun loses, then she will become Champingen's slave, because Shiyun is too confident. After Chen saw Shiyun, he apparently turned down the deal, not because he was afraid of losing, but because he felt Shiyun was just a kid and also normal. As a result, this made Shiyun instantly emotional and issued a move called Blue Hawk, a secret move from Yanji sect belonging to herself, whose method of action is similar to Moi's Racing Thunder, strengthening her whole body, and as one might expect, Chen could see with one glance, copying the Blue Hawk style and having a draw against Shiyun, seeing that her sect's secret moves could be used by someone she never knew. Shiyun immediately became shocked. What exactly was this person's identity? How could he use her sect's secret moves, and most importantly, whoever he was, Shiyun felt he should be killed for stealing her sect's moves without permission. Shiryun then took out her sword, while chanting an incantation and prepared to cast a move that released a lot of sword aura around her body. In the eyes of the onlookers, the sword Shiryun used was a supreme spiritual weapon which not many people had, so they wondered what was this woman's identity. Surely she is not a random person. When Shiryun was preparing to issue her move by reciting the spell earlier, Chen then imitated everything Shiryun did, cast the same spell as Shiryun and successfully imitated his sword move. Even Chen was ready before Shiryun himself finished, so Shiryun was again panicked because of her. Chen imitated the move again. Even though he was panicked, Shiryun was still very confident that he could beat Chen if she fought with totality, but when they were almost fighting they let out the moves they had prepared. Shiryun suddenly felt the aura of the firebird that was dispelled earlier, so fearing that the firebird would disappear again, she immediately teleported to the aura of the firebird and left Champingen in the arena. Now in the eyes of the spectators there, Shiryun seemed to have disappeared suddenly, so they thought that this Shiryun had been killed by Chen's sword move. Then after Shiryun disappeared, the funny thing was that Chen also didn't know how to cancel the move, so the audience there immediately ran, thinking that Chen, after killing Shiryun, planned to slaughter all of them in the arena. Because his moves were still active and Chen got a notification that his mission was over, because everyone in the kingdom already knew the name Longation as a cruel cultivator and didn't hesitate to kill his opponent. With the loss of all tournament participants, the prince announced that he no longer needed to continue the second round and tournament champion in Warrior Kingdom was won by Team Champingen, but instead of Chen being happy because he won and his mission was accomplished, Chen was lethargic because now he was known as a ruthless cultivator in the eyes of people. Luckily the prince said that he would help Senior Chen to explain the situation to everyone, then invited Chen to come to his birthday party. Unfortunately, at that time, because the mission had been completed, the teleportation count from the system had gone backwards, so Chen humbly refused the prince's invitation on the grounds that there was some business, and then said instead he would send gifts to his birthday. Then moved to Champingen House, where the firebird that Shiryun was looking for was apparently in Champingen House, because it was called by Phoenix in the form of this chicken. Phoenix offered the firebird to become his student with a promise that within 1 year he would be able to evolve into a phoenix. Firebird then asked to the chicken, "Who is this chicken actually?" Hear that the identity of the chicken is a creature called the Heavenly Phoenix. As a result, after hearing that name, Firebird accepted Phoenix's offer to become his student, or perhaps to be more precise, to become Phoenix's subordinate. Like the previous Black Serpent, now the Black Serpent has leveled up to become a pseudo-dragon or almost a dragon. Shiryun apparently accidentally witnessed all these events from the cracks in the door that had followed the Firebird vibes to Chen House. She immediately fainted helplessly when she felt the aura in the courtyard that was 10,000 times stronger than that of the Immortal Emperor. Said Shiryun, "The creatures inside are also not just any creatures, these are all mythical creatures." Shiryun was even more shocked when all the creatures in the courtyard suddenly panicked, saying that the master had gone home, and the Firebird was also confused about what happened and was only told to hide by Phoenix. So Shiryun was wondering what kind of person could make them panic like that. After that, Chen came over to Shiryun and returned to his old habit when a stranger who for some reason always knelt in his yard.